We've all heard of Hannibal Lecter, the most cultured and enigmatic fictional serial killer. While many of you first encountered him through The Silence of the Lambs, today we turn to the TV show Hannibal, where the character is given a hauntingly philosophical depth. Rather than analyzing his crimes or psychology in isolation, let's view Hannibal through the lens of the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, a thinker who, like Hannibal, challenged the foundations of morality and stared unflinchingly into the abyss of human nature. Through Nietzsche's eyes, Hannibal emerges not just as a killer, but as a symbol of something far more unsettling, a man who refuses to be bound by conventional morality, who creates his own values, and who transforms violence into something disturbingly beautiful. There are fictional characters who frighten us because of what they do. Dr. Lecter isn't one of them. He frightens us because of what he represents. He's not a monster hiding in the dark. He's something worse, a man fully awake, someone who doesn't suppress his nature. He perfects it, and the more you listen to him, the more familiar he starts to feel. Not because you agree with him, maybe, but because some part of you recognizes the truth in what he says. A dark, elegant truth that Nietzsche spent his life trying to name. Nietzsche believed that most people live asleep, not unconscious but unexamined, guided by morality not because it's true, but because it's convenient, safe, predictable. He called it the morality of the herd, people clinging to systems, to rules, to anything that lets them avoid the burden of thinking for themselves. He said in his book, Beyond Good and Evil, morality is the best of all devices for leading mankind by the nose. For Nietzsche, morality wasn't virtue, it was obedience, and obedience, while useful to the herd, was death to the individual spirit. He imagined another kind of person, someone who could rise above the inherited values of their time, not a rebel for the sake of rebellion, but a creator, someone who makes their own values, who lives with intention instead of imitation. He called it the Übermensch. Hannibal Lecter fits that mold disturbingly well. He doesn't follow moral law, he doesn't even argue with it. He walks past it, not in chaos but in clarity. He kills not out of compulsion, but with precision, with taste, and with restraint. He doesn't ask for forgiveness, he doesn't apologize. And unlike most people, he doesn't lie to himself about who he is. Nietzsche said, "The noble soul has reverence for itself." That's the kind of quiet, unwavering self-regard Hannibal lives by. He isn't tortured by guilt. He isn't hiding from himself. He is above all honest. And it's that honesty that unnerves us. Because we are used to seeing guilt, we understand remorse, but when someone stares you in the eye and says, "This is who I am, and I'm not sorry," it short-circuits our moral expectations. To Hannibal, good and evil are aesthetic concepts, not absolute ones. He doesn't act in the name of chaos, he acts in the name of design. He creates meaning the way an artist does, through composition, contrast, and control. The noble type man, experience itself as value creating, it does not need approval. Nietzsche admired this, not the killing, but the clarity, the refusal to live by someone else's definition. Hannibal's life is not about domination, it's about taste, the careful, cultivated expression of self. That's why he doesn't just kill, he curates. He crafts meaning from death. He makes it into something more than violence, something symbolic. And whether we like it or not, there is something seductive about that level of certainty. Nietzsche, in his famous book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, said, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." Hannibal is that star, born not from moral order, but from internal chaos refined into art. But to truly understand him, we need to go deeper into Nietzsche's world. Nietzsche believed that all great art, all true self-expression, emerges from a balance between two forces, the Apollonian and the Dionysian. Apollo is reason, harmony, structure. Dionysus is instinct, passion, chaos. Most people are trapped in one or the other. Hannibal moves between them like a dancer. He is an Apollonian in his elegance, his restraint, his precision, but Dionysian in his ecstasy, his raw appetite, his reverence for the primal. To Nietzsche, greatness lay in the tension, the fusion of both, and Hannibal doesn't suppress his instincts, he stylizes them. That's what makes him terrifying and transcendent. But Hannibal's influence isn't just philosophical, it's deeply personal, especially when it comes to Will Graham, the one man he sees not as a patient or pawn, but as a potential. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche describes 3 stages of the spirit. First, the camel, the one who bears the weight of morality, duty, and suffering. Then, the lion, the one who rebels against those burdens and says no to the world. But rebellion isn't enough. To be truly free, the spirit must become a child who is capable of saying yes to life. Will starts as the camel, empathic, self-sacrificing, bound by justice, burdened by guilt. But Hannibal sees the lion in him, the rage, the potential to tear down the systems that confine him, and more than that, Hannibal wants Will to become the child, to be reborn as something new, not as a copy of Hannibal, but as a creation of his own, a being beyond good and evil. And like Zarathustra, Hannibal becomes a kind of dark midwife, coaxing Will toward that transformation, not with violence, but with seduction, with philosophy. He doesn't want to destroy Will, he wants to see him born. Transformation is violent. Becoming who you are means killing who you were. And what Will sees in Hannibal isn't just a mirror, it's a challenge. Can you truly become yourself without becoming something monstrous? And that's what makes Hannibal more than a villain. He's not the opposite of the hero, he's the opposite of conformity. He isn't out to destroy the world, he's out to reveal it, to pull back the curtain and say, this is who you are when no one's watching. This is what you are without your rules. Not because he's trying to corrupt you, but because he's already seen through the illusion. And beyond good and evil, Nietzsche says, he who despises himself still respects himself as one who despises. Hannibal doesn't despise himself, and that alone sets him apart in a world built on guilt and self-denial. Nietzsche warned us that the Übermensch would be misunderstood, feared, and cast out, because he doesn't seek approval, he doesn't seek redemption, he seeks only to live as an expression of his own truth, even if that truth is terrifying. Hannibal fits that mold. Not perfectly, in fact no character can, but he walks close to it. Not a teacher, not a prophet, more like a test, a question. What if morality isn't truth? What if good and evil are just names? And what happens when someone stops pretending they believe in them? Nietzsche once again in his book, The Gay Science, said, what if one day or night a demon were to steal after you and say, this life as you know, live it, and have lived it, you will have to live it once more and innumerable time. Would you be horrified, or would you smile like Hannibal does and say, yes, this too, this is my design? That's the real horror of Hannibal Lecter, not the blood or the elegance, but the fact that he doesn't want to scare you, he wants to liberate you. And when he speaks with the calm voice and sharp smile, it's not a threat, it's a kind of invitation. To step outside of the herd, to abandon comfort, to become something more or less than human. Not because it's safe, but because it's honest. This is my design.